freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your DFS preview for this week's Hero World Challenge. Greg DuCharme is here to help me break it all down. And Greg, it is a 20-man field in the Bahamas with no cut. It is good to see you again.
It's good to see you again, Rick. And we got some star power in this field. We got a really nice field on a nice golf course. We're going to see some nice images of some really big boats. This is a kind of a dream event, a nice, relaxing, dreamy event down in the Bahamas. So I'm excited to break it all down.
Tiger Woods will be there as host. He will not be playing. This field was rounded out by Sepp Straka, Nick Dunlap, and Justin Thomas. So it is a field of 20. As I mentioned, no cut. So 4 guaranteed rounds, barring some type of DQ or WD. And let's talk about that golf course here, Greg. It's Albany. It's Albany Golf Club. And this is a course that we see year in and year out, generally hosting this event. What types of things can we expect, or any challenges that it might pose for this week's competitors?
Hey, the wind can be a challenge. That is likely the biggest defense when you look at a golf course like this. There are some others as well. I mean, while the fairways are fairly generous, you do have some rather small greens. They're about 4,500 square feet on average, and they feature some pretty significant runoffs, some severe slopes, which when I think back on the Hero World Challenge and watching this event, a lot of tournaments have been lost around the greens. I'm not sure you could say they've been won around the greens, but they have definitely been lost around the greens. You got those tight, grainy Bermuda lies. You could find yourself some 10 feet below the surface of the green at times. And the ball has a tendency on a mishit pitch shot around those greens to end up right back at your feet, as it has many times in the past.
Yeah, especially when you've taken, I don't know, sometimes a month or two off and you're feeling pressure for the first time in a while, and all of a sudden you've got, like you said, those grainy Bermuda lies where you've got to get it up over your head. It can get ugly pretty quickly. We've seen that.
It's happened to Sam Burns, Colin Morikawa.
Yeah.
Those two come to mind. Interestingly enough, 2 of the last 3 have gone to Victor Hovland, who's not playing this week. But in a time when he was really struggling with his short game, he was able to get the job done here. So I do think that's an important element to pay attention to, but it's not really where you want to put in all of your stake. Because I think if you were looking at this tournament saying, hey, short game is crucial, you would have missed Victor Hovland 2 out of the last 3 years. And by the way, he came in second last year too. So
Victor Hovland not here, Colin Morikawa not here, Xander Schauffele not here. Xander doesn't always play this event, but he has a handful of times in the past. But the defending champion is here, and that's Scottie Scheffler. Josh, if you want to share my screen, I've got the cheat sheet from my website, rickrungood.com, available. We'll hit maybe the 10K, the 9K, then we'll hit that break. It's kind of a little bit of awkward timing because we've got only 20 golfers, but here they are, Greg, in all their glory. 3 in the $10,000 range. Scottie Scheffler leads the way at $11,900. Patrick Cantlay at $10,002, and Ludwig Oberg, second start back since the knee surgery, at $10,000 even. So there they are, the big boys in this field.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Look, I think Scottie Scheffler is an obvious choice here. It's hard, even though his price is very high, it's hard not to click his name. We have just seen no downside in his performance. If you want to nitpick, he's been kind of hit or miss on the greens lately, but it hasn't really led to anything bad. It hasn't led to any poor performances. So I'm not too worried about that. The BMW Championship, clearly somewhat of a fluke. Altitude kind of got him in all areas of his game. But other than that, Scottie's been Scottie. And as the defending champion, there's no reason to think that he isn't going to come in here and beat 19 other players with all of his skill set. So it's hard for me to get away from Scottie in this range.
Runner-up win the last 3 years for Scottie Scheffler here if you take any number of rounds that you want. 12, 24, 36, 50, 100, 200,000. Probably doesn't matter. He is probably the number one golfer in this field. And I think it's a pretty significant gap, Greg. One thing that we talk about a lot is that I think in weeks like this, and I'll use extreme vocabulary, but I think Scottie's a must play in DFS and almost a non-bet in the odds market. He's like 2 to 1 or 2.5 to 1, but we are seeing a sub $12,000 Scottie Scheffler for the first time since Bay Hill, where he was 11,300. So usually a heavy favorite does not get priced accordingly in DFS. So I am happy to just click Scottie's name early, often, and often again.
Does he have to win to pay that off? I mean, it doesn't seem like he would.
The only problem would be, I suppose, if Patrick Cantlay or Ludwig won. But if Scottie finished second or third and the winner was Sahith and then Tom Kent, it's like I think you'd be just fine.
And I think there's a way. I'm not suggesting this, but you could get Scottie and Ludwig on the same team in this field. I don't know if you could do Patrick Cantlay and Scottie.
Okay, hold that thought, because when we get down there, I think I probably agree with you. I'm going to have to do some quick mental math, but as we get farther down, I actually think the cheapest guys are kind of the better guys.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely a way to explain that. So my point is, even if he doesn't win, there's still a pretty good likelihood that he finishes in the top 3, and that means that he needs to be on your roster.
Let's remove Scottie from the conversation. Like he does not exist in this world. Patrick Cantlay and Ludwig Åberg are the other two options. Cantlay had a good 2024, but I think certainly below a lot of his expectations. And then Ludwig, as I mentioned earlier, just back in action, had the offseason knee surgery, teed it up at the RSM Classic, had 2 really good rounds, 2 pretty poor rounds. So if there is no Scottie in this world, where would you be going next?
Now, I looked at this player pool first before pricing came out. And I wrote down Scottie's name. I wrote down Ludwig's name as guys that I was interested in. So let's just start with Ludwig. I'm interested in him because, like you said, he's just kind of coming back. And the RSM tied 17th may not look great, but he did shoot 2 rounds of 64. He had a brutal first round. He was 5 over par at one point. And the fact that was the first round and he worked his way back into that tournament, I think is a really good sign. So there's a lot to like about Ludwig. I was a little disappointed when the pricing came out that he was at $10,000. I was a little surprised. If he was any cheaper, he would be a definite click for me. He may, because you feel like you have to play Scottie, may get priced out. Like I said, I think there's a way to play both. But I like Ludwig a lot. He would be my second choice in this range. And when it comes to Cantlay, he's just hard to figure out. We haven't seen a whole lot of him. We saw him at the President's Cup.
Barely played, Greg.
Barely played. And he does that, right? He's probably the reason why this FedEx Cup fall has changed so much. Because he likes to have some time off. He needs some time off to stay fresh with his health concerns, with his back, the troubles that he's had with his back in the past. You look at what he's done in this tournament. He's played it twice, 2018, 2019. It tied 5th, which you like. Tied 17th. It doesn't force me into a position where I got to click his name just because it's Patrick Cantlay. I'm happy to put him on the bench for this one.
He has played like 7 times in the last 6 months, which is a good gig if you can find it.
Yeah. Yep. I do pretty well. It's not to say he's not working. We know he's doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and I know he puts a ton of effort into his game as well. So I think he'll be ready to play. I think he'll play pretty well, but second highest priced player in the field, I think there's a lot of better options.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a tough click. Well, the 9K range is very, very small. There's only 2 golfers in it. That's Justin Thomas at 9,600 and Sam Burns at 93. I thought we might get a discount on JT. He was a sponsor's invite, like basically last man in the field. How's he priced as the 4th most expensive alongside Sam Burns here?
Well, again, before pricing came out, he was the second name that I wrote down. He has a great record here. All right. Maybe this had something to do. Maybe it was the friendship with Tiger Woods. Maybe it's the fact that he is finished in his last 4 starts tied 5th or better. Tied fifth, 3rd in his last 4 starts here, which is kind of you got a 20-man field. If you finish in the top 5, I'd say you're playing pretty well. Tied 12th and 11th. Those are middle of the road finishes in his other 2 starts, but the last 4 have been really good. So I like that aspect. It's a good course fit for him. And you look at what he's done lately, especially with the Zozo Championship. He hit the ball like Justin Thomas.
Yes, and he also putted like Justin Thomas, which is, in my opinion, okay. So this profile looks like vintage JT. Maybe a small loser, maybe a small winner off the tee. Be really good on your second shot, be one of the best players in the world around the green, and you're probably going to lose with the putter. That to me is vintage. I had issues, at times last year when he was struggling on the second shot. Like, there's just no path for him in that way. There are a lot of paths to him being just kind of vintage JT.
Yes. You think about what this golf course offers as well. You have some generosity off the tee. He shouldn't get punished too much if he gets a little wayward at times. And I think he'll feel comfortable on the tee shot, so he shouldn't get wayward as often, which I think is a really good sign. He can kind of stick with the field with his driving. With the middle 2 areas of the game, the short game, we mentioned how difficult that can be, how small those greens are. That can present another challenge. And once you're on the greens, they're relatively flat. You look at some of these winners. We mentioned Hovland already, but even going back, you got Henrik Stenson who won here, Hideki Matsuyama who's won here. John Rahm, probably not a great example, but Bubba Watson is perhaps another pretty good example where they're not necessarily great putters, but they can putt really well here for this week. So, yeah, JT, I'd love to get Scottie Scheffler and Justin Thomas on a team. Maybe ownership, you got to be a little more creative because of ownership, but I love what JT's showing.
Yeah, remember, we're going to be rostering basically a third of the field in every single lineup, 6 out of 20. So the numbers they're going to be outrageous. Scottie Scheffler might be, 70% owned or something like that, just because of the nature of this field. I will also point out Justin Thomas and Scottie Scheffler are the 2 best players in this field in no cut events dating back to 2020. Here's Sam Burns, and I'm not really sure what to do with Sam Burns. I clearly like Scottie. I clearly like Ludwig. I clearly like Justin Thomas. If I have to pass on Cantlay, that's fine. I can't have everybody. And Burns was kind of trending towards a lot of really good play at the end of last year. T5 in Memphis, runner-up finish at the BMW Championship, T20 at the Tour Championship. What do we do here? Is he just going to be a victim of the pricing?
Where are you going to separate yourself? Because Sam Burns, again, we haven't seen him since the President's Cup, right? So you don't really know exactly what you're going to get. So you're taking a little bit of a guess. His record here, he has a tied 3rd in 21. That's when he should have won this tournament. It got away from him because of short game. Since then, a 12th and a 16th. So probably some poor play, but I don't think he hates the golf course. So that's like a wash. His recent form is probably a wash. The question is, are you going to pivot off of Justin Thomas as good as he looks? What we saw at the Zozo, like you said, vintage JT. The play for Sam Burns is, well, a lot of JT is going to be really popular. I'm going to go with Sam Burns instead. And I'm fine. I think there's enough to go on there. I mean, you look at what he did with his irons from the Open Championship to the Tour Championship, gain strokes approaching the green, which can be a weakness for him. 2 or more strokes in 5 straight events. With the way that he putts the ball, though, that's how you end up with what he did, all top 12 finishes in that stretch. And the President's Cup, you kind of have some wonky stats. I wouldn't look too closely into those. So I think the game looked and seemed to be in really good form for Sam Burns, and I'm willing to play him. He's surrounded by players I prefer, but I think he's a good enough player to go game theory. And if you feel like you can get an edge with ownership, it could be worth it.
Loves putting on Bermuda. So we'll see if he can continue to roll the rock this week. So tiny little 9K range, only a slightly bigger 8K range. We're going to continue this conversation and get to basically the rest of this field after a quick word from our partners.
At CBS Sports Galazzo Network, we're bringing you the game.
Madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Whoa.
And all day long!
24/7.
And we're back. I love the dynamics of this 8K range. Russell Henley is 8,800. Tom Kim is 8,400. And Wyndham Clark is $8,000. I cannot think of 3 guys who are more different than one another. You know what I mean? I just, if I would normally say the 2 ends of the spectrum, but let's just imagine this is a 3-ended spectrum in some scenario. Just like Russell Henley, Tom Kim, Wyndham Clark have very little in common with one another.
I think that's fair to say. Perhaps Tom Kim and Russell Henley have some comparable attributes. Perhaps. But I think this is a really interesting range to break down as well, because the guy that you would probably put third, just on name recognition, sitting at a bar, top of head, who's the best player of these 3? Well, Russell Henley would probably be the third, but I think he's actually the best player in this threesome, which is just fascinating. So again, now he starts to merge in with the Justin Thomas and Sam Burns. So depending on what you're going to do there, maybe you skip both of those guys. Russell Henley would be a great play. Pairing Russell Henley with Scottie Scheffler like they did in the Ryder Cup could work out really nicely, because you love what he does with his iron play. The rest of his game is so strong. The one knock on him is distance, which I don't think is a huge deciding factor here. We've seen Colin Morikawa have success, and I think Russell Henley can keep up with Colin Morikawa when it comes to distance, fits that style, and is probably a better putter. So there's a lot of ways that Russell Henley plays a great tournament this week. And for that reason, I rank him number 1. Now, is he going to be your top click when it comes to game theory and pricing? A lot of that's going to depend on what you did up top. I think Wyndham Clark's a great option too, and probably my second choice in this range.
Well, Wyndham Clark is always a little bit more volatile than a lot of the guys that he has priced around. And that was the case for most of 2024. He did go on a really, really good stretch. And this is even way after the win. The Travelers Championship up until, basically the end of the year, he was a top 15 machine. Yeah, sure. Miscut here, miscut there. But when he made the cut, it was a top 15 finish, a top 10 finish. Some of the metrics were coming back. We saw him putt a lot better. I think there is reason to be optimistic about Wyndham Clark, right? That's kind of what you're seeing as you're assessing this.
Yes, the finishing positions are a great sign. I don't necessarily like the way that he's gone about it, right? He's been very volatile with his iron play as well. I'd like to see that get a little more consistent, but this just feels like, it's hard to say because it's such a small field, but it feels like he's underpriced. It feels like at 8,000 flat, you can get a really strong player who could go win the tournament if it's one of the good weeks. So he would be absolutely an upside play. Russell Henley would be a much safer play. And you're taking a chance. So, what's the rest of your lineup look like? What are you doing in the 9K, if anything? Are you playing Scottie Scheffler or not? Those kind of decisions could play a big role in what you do in the 8K range.
The middleman is Tom Kim, who has played a little bit more golf recently. So President's Cup, he then played Shriners, missed the cut there, wasn't particularly great. Goes over to the DP World Tour, finishes runner-up at the Korea Championship. That was I believe Ben On won that. And then, and then he missed the cut in Hong Kong, which is an Asian Tour event. So I don't like that, Greg. I mean, that's a much weaker field than most things we're going to be able to see. So when you look at Tom Kim and what he has been up to as of late, what do you read into this?
Well, I don't know where his game is. I mean, just look at all right. So tied 50th at the FedEx St. Jude, did not make it to the BMW, made a mess coming home, and to miss out on the second leg of the playoffs. Right. Misses the cut at the Shriners, second in a DP World Tour event, and then misses the cut in Hong Kong. And it's like, well, what is going on?
Well, even here. So this goes back to the Travelers. Runner-up, miscut. 15th, miscut. 8th, 50th, miscut. 2nd, miscut. So I guess we're getting a top three here. If
the pattern's going to continue,
the pattern continue, but that is a perfect example of what you're talking about, where it's like, what is he doing? How do we even assess this?
And there are so many things. If you look a little deeper, like he has so many dark green squares in that approach play category where he's just filling it up with irons, over 5 at the Travelers, over 7 at the Olympics, 10 and change, nearly 11 strokes approaching the green at the Genesis Championship. Again, that was the one in Korea. Is that field, is the fact that it was the Olympics, it was a limited field, does that throw things off? A DP World Tour event, is that throwing things off? I don't really know where we are in any of these games as well. And I don't know why the finishes have been so volatile. Usually that leads me to believe that he's a really good player and doesn't quite have it. Whatever he's working on, it's not quite set in stone yet. So that's why he would be third in this trio for me.
After that, the 7K, I'm just going to lump everybody together here. So this is 7,000 and down. Just very quickly, it's Sung Jae Im, Jason Day, Sahith, Robert McIntyre. That's 7,800 to 7,100. Then the final handful of golfers are Aaron Rai, Cam Young, Akshay Bhatia. Brian Harmon is 6,600. Keegan is 65. And then the last 3 are Nick Dunlap, Sepp Straka, and Matthew Pavone. Greg, I was teasing this a little bit earlier. I think it's a pretty significant drop-off when you get to this point compared to what we've already spoken about. I think my favorites are kind of Nick Dunlap, Sepp Straka, save on the salary, see how far that can get me. And if I have to skip Aaron Rai or Cam Young, am I really going to kick myself for that? I don't know. I mean, there's not a lot I'm super excited about, so I might as well save the salary here.
There's one guy that I'm pretty excited about.
All right.
In this range. I think there's an advantage here at 7,100, Robert McIntyre.
Okay.
And here's why. One, he's been playing.
Yeah, a lot.
Right. So this is where you get the big price drop off, but Wyndham Clark hasn't been playing, Sam Burns hasn't been playing, and it's no knock on them. It's just, Robert McIntyre's played 5 events since the Tour Championship, which he made. Big time events, and he's gaining strokes in every single category. So I think Robert McIntyre is playing some really good golf, and I think this is the kind of golf course that could really suit his game. We get some windy conditions. Looks like we might get some windy conditions Friday and Saturday at the very least. Those middle 2 days, I wouldn't be surprised to see Robert McIntyre go make a splash in this tournament. And I like what I'm seeing with a lot of recent form and pretty darn good recent form. All of those events since the Tour Championship have been top 25 finishes. 2 of them have been top 10s. Another one's a top 15. It's pretty good play all around. So he's a guy that I have circled.
Yeah, that is a good one. After Robert McIntyre, which I agree with you on. Is there anybody else that gets you real excited here?
I think it's worth mentioning Sung Jae Im because he really, tied 13th at the Zozo Championship. He has been a top 12 machine for a long time now. Going back to the U.S. Open. I think it's every event since the U.S. Open. He missed the cut at the U.S. Open. Every event except the Wyndham and Memphis have been top 13 finishes.
Yeah.
We've seen some really good ball striking from him. We've seen some really good putting from him. It hasn't been quite, across the board stellar like Robert McIntyre, but pretty darn close. So I could definitely see a reason to play Sung Jae Im this week, depending on the rest of your. Would you play Sung Jae or Wyndham? It's close. It's close for me.
Yeah, it's pretty close. I guess the argument with Wyndham is that if you get 4 good days from Wyndham might win. Sung Jae is historically a underachieving when it comes to wins. He's at like a 1% win rate. Wyndham's much higher than that.
So that's fair. But they're all much lower this week because Scottie's playing.
Well, that's for sure. There's a couple of like 22 and unders in this field that are, I think, pretty reasonable. The reason I like Nick Dunlap is for a couple reasons. Obviously, I think he's very good at golf, but I like this, 5.5 stroke on approach upside that we've seen from him. We saw it at Sanderson Farms. We saw it at the FedEx St. Jude. Obviously, the 2 wins in the last year. He doesn't always have it, but when he does, it's pretty powerful stuff. You guarantee him 4 rounds. You're not worried about him missing the cut. He's the 3rd cheapest golfer in the field. If he finishes like T9, you've probably gotten everything that you need out of him, assuming he makes enough birdies. So I just think that, the finishing position points are probably going to go a long way here with everybody being inside the top 20. The difference between, 8th in finishing position points and 15th, I think that's going to end up being pretty valuable.
I think that's a really good point. And a couple good points on Nick Dunlap. One, the worry that I have with him is what he does off the tee. He can spray it from time to time. And I think this is a golf course that will allow him to, have a little breathing room with his driver, a little breathing room off the tee, and he can lean on that approach play a little bit. His putting has been a little sporadic, but I think it's really good. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him go out there and have a great week on the greens. So Dunlap is certainly a guy on my list. And this guy you just pulled up too, Rick. He's like at 6,700, Akshay Bhatia, where we are.
That's right.
We're in the tropics.
That's right.
He's won in the Bahamas before on the Corn Ferry Tour. So Akshay is definitely a player with a little more risk that I'm willing to take some chances on.
Yeah. Pretty sick that so I think who did I click? So that was Akshay, Dunlap, Tom Kim, and there was somebody else that like are 22 and younger. Like these guys are just so sick. It's horrible.
So good.
I mean, Keegan, whatever, Brian Harmon, whatever, probably doesn't move the needle in either direction for me. I think it's save the salary or like you said, I mean, Robert McIntyre, I think is pretty clearly of these 12 golfers that I'm showing right now, $7,800 and lower. McIntyre, who has played a lot and well, is definitely exciting.
Yes, probably the guy. I like taking the chance on Akshay and Nick Dunlap as well. I'm not afraid of Aaron Rai at 6,900 either.
I've admittedly not seen or thought about what Aaron Rai has been up to in quite some time. He probably played. Did he play a couple DP World Tour? Yeah, he did.
A couple. He played 3 of them, right?
Yeah.
But you're talking about all in September.
Yeah.
So he's had some time off. He played well at Wentworth. The thing I like about him is it's got a little Scheffler, Henley kind of style to it, where he's never going to put himself in trouble. And so he's always going to give you a chance. It hinges on what he does with that flat stick.
Yeah, he's gonna smash fairways and greens, and then is he gonna make enough putts? Is really.
And I think that style can work out here. I really do. So I think Aaron Rai took a big step this year with his ball striking acumen, and he had some stretches where his putting really improved as well, which is a good sign. That hasn't quite stuck, but I still think he is leveled up as a player and is worth a look. He's a safer option if you're like Dunlap, too volatile for me. Maybe I've gone with another volatile player up top. You're looking for a safe option. McIntyre and Rye are my safer plays down low.
20 men in this field, and we spoke about nearly every single one of them. So hopefully that was a good experience. We've got plenty more coming. And remember, we've got a mailbag episode coming up in December. So the way that you can get involved with that, anything you want, send it over to Josh. It's firstcutpodcast@gmail.com. Tuesday's mega preview will be an hour earlier. That'll be live. I don't know if it's an hour, it might be half hour. That'll be live at 4:30 Eastern time, because that's my fault. I have HQ afterwards. So that's on me. Thank you very much. And we are adding a different voice. So a little bit of a surprise voice will be coming in for that episode tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. And then of course, Sunday will be the recap episode for this week. Anything I missed, Greg?
I don't think so, Rick. You knocked it out of the park once again. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. We'll discuss even further these 20 players. And then on Sunday, we'll see if we were right or not. I can't wait.
That is the best part about this. We find out whether we were right or not like 5 days later. So
yes. Right now I am dead on.
Oh yeah. Perfect job today. You nailed every single take. Was absolutely perfect. And if you're wrong on Sunday, it's because something happened between now and then that, somebody tweaked it back or,
Yeah. How could you foresee that?
No, you couldn't have possibly been wrong.
All good picks.
All good picks. That'll do it. Big thanks to producer Josh. Does all the hard work behind the scenes. You can find Greg DuCharme at The Real GFD, and you can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.